I took that idea from dance. I took that idea from how do you draw people? Well, you got to show them what you do.
Welcome, everyone, to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals brought to you by Windowsill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I am sitting down with Juanita Lowery. Juanita is the associate broker with J. Lowery and Associates in Richmond Hill, Georgia, and today we sit down and talk about how Juanita's past as a dance instructor actually sparked her interest in real estate when she went to buy her first dance studio. We talk about how her background as an educator has primed her for educating her real estate clients and mentoring new agents. And we also talk about Juanita's advice for buyers and sellers and why it's important for sellers to keep their homes show ready. So without further ado, let's talk to Juanita. Juanita, thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to kick our conversation off with how you got started in real estate.
Sure. Funny story. Uh, what inspired me to start real estate, I kind of always peeked at it for many, many years. Never pursued it, but what started me is a commercial purchase. I had bought 2 homes before, clean transactions, no questions, that went smoothly. But when I went to buy, previous a dance teacher, taught dance for 30 years, and I went to buy the facility, dance studio, and the agent wasn't very forthcoming. Put a building under contract and found out that I wasn't even on record as the buyer. So I started researching for my own sake what's going on, what did I sign, what did I fill out, and really was intrigued by the process and what I missed buying on the residential side 2 times in my life previously. And so I decided to give it a shot. First, I studied online. That didn't work. Real estate is French. And I went to a class and sat in person and got it started as almost like a side hustle, thinking that's what it would be. And it was my part-time job that took full-time hours. And I just basically started helping clients buy and sell. And I realized that my background in teaching was my niche. And from there, it kind of took off. I no longer teach. I retired teaching and in real estate full time, and was able to take my teaching in dance, believe it or not, background and just change my product. I'm no longer servicing people with dance. I'm servicing people with real estate in almost the same way.
That's so cool that you were kind of able to link these things together. And it makes sense to me because I have a bit of a dance background myself. I was never going to be like Dancing with the Stars, never going to be like competitive or anything like that, but I have a love for it.
Right.
And I've seen in class in looking into your bio, you even wrote that you, from your teaching background, that everybody learns differently and that you were able to take that into real estate. And I've definitely seen that in dance classes as well. I think I'm one of those people who learns pretty differently, so that it's just so cool that you were able to translate that knowledge and skill.
Right. And you could probably relate to this. In dance, we have layers. On top of the choreography, you have, okay, I got to get the rhythm, I got to get the timing. You have to stage blocking, you have to entrances and exits, and make sure my costume is not falling apart, and breathing properly, and audience participation. All of these things, that's similar to a real estate transaction. Keeping everything together for one awesome performance, one awesome ending, one awesome closing at the end. And once I started putting those things together and realizing a lot of people that don't understand dance, like dance and real estate, yeah, but they're similar. As far as the makeup of paying attention to different aspects, running all at the same time, and be able to keep them together until they get to the success. And I really enjoy it. It doesn't make me, it's as much energy, I would say, than as dancing. Moving amongst the floor and moving from house to house and client to client. It's not for the weak, and neither is dance. So I use a lot of what I've learned throughout the years with real estate.
And I'm sure it helped you build up a stamina too and an expertise as an entrepreneur, because I mean, I don't really know the ins and outs of owning a dance studio, but from my perspective, it seems like a very difficult business, right? You really have to love it. I think
Yes.
the same is with real estate, right? There's, and not only, for the moving parts of the dance, which I love that metaphor. Love a metaphor. Um, but also running the business aspect of the
Right.
studio, and you were able to kind of take that with you to your real estate business as well, especially dealing with lots of different people.
Believe it or not, it took me a while to put the two and two together. Initially, I thought I have to learn something all new. Initially, I was thinking, how I ran the dance studio for 20 some odd years is not going to help me here at all. And then slowly but surely, it started with marketing. Me asking myself, okay, Juanita, you came from New York to Georgia. How are you going to let everyone know that you have this gift and this service to offer? And 2005 was when I started my dance studio. Is when video and social media was very popular. So who could deny little ballerinas? Who can turn away from a picture or a video of small ballerinas in their ballet shoes and tutus? So my idea was to put them as the forefront of my marketing and my advertising. So I had an epiphany a couple of months into real estate and said, why can't I do the same thing? Okay, what do people want to see? They want to see the beautiful kitchens, the beautiful master baths. They want to see the beautiful backyards, front yards. Okay, let's do it. So I started in 2018 videoing homes with my phone and posting them to social media. And I actually had a transaction. One of my first transactions was a military client from Iraq who was being stationed here. And it was around June or July when we started corresponding through Instagram. And literally, I sold her a new construction home through FaceTime. Before COVID hit, before any, of these things really people were doing them, but they weren't popular. It wasn't everyone doing them. And I took that idea from dance. I took that idea from how do you draw people? Well, you got to show them what you do. You have to show them how you set yourself apart. You have to show them how you're different. And at that time, 2018, when not that many people were doing videos or pictures of homes, that was my idea to um, do different aspects of showing people who I am. So they would want to know who's behind the camera and who is the agent giving this information. So that took me a while to put two and two together, but and then slowly I started adding other aspects besides marketing, as far as keeping a database and keeping track of what my clients' needs are. Like as a student, I have to know if I'm training you in ballet, what are your weaknesses and what are your needs and how am I going to make you better? So I implemented that into dance. What is the value that I could add to my client? And what can I add? People don't need what they already possess. They need what you can bring. So I started adding all of those, and believe it or not, I got it from dance.
I love everything you just said, and I love the lens of looking at it from the outside, like from your client's perspective, whether it be, formerly dance and now real estate. Like, what do they want to see? Like, what's going to resonate with them? And that's kind of like taking the ego out of it. It's like, no, it's not what I want to do. It's like what's going to get them to pay attention.
Right. And I'm really excited about that. But I have learned that you have to keep adjusting and changing and adapting as real estate changes. Real estate is has an ever changing market, has an ever changing features of people's like trends and clothes and hair and styles. Except I think real estate changes a little bit faster than those things, but just keeping in the forefront of how you can be top of mind to clients that don't have a clue about you, how you can add value. And I really enjoy it.
And going back to what you were saying about, way back before the real estate market of 2020 that was really hot, that was moving fast, where people weren't necessarily going into houses as much. And there was probably more of these FaceTime transactions happening. You had that experience already. You were 2 years ahead of the game. And so I can only imagine that for you when 2020 hit and it became like this insane, market, that you were so prepared.
The only thing when COVID hit that I was worried about is the National Area Realtors or Savannah Area Realtors going to limit us? Are they going to tell us we can't show houses? Are they going to tell us we can't do videos? That was my only worry. If I don't have that limitation, I was ready to go. I already had the equipment and the materials to step my game up a little bit because that was part of my plan. I'm not a photographer, so purchasing a gimbal, purchasing all of these different equipment. So as I went out and video these homes, and I never did it as like advertising. I always did it exclusively. You're interested in these particular homes. I've only sent it to that particular customer or client. It just made me seem as if I had a whole crew when it was really just me. I was able to, just like if we made a plan or to go out and look at 3 or 4 different homes, I was able to go out, video those 3 or 4 homes, and get it out to you. I had a way to send large files. I had a way for you to open it already set up because of my clients that I was getting from overseas. I had already made a bunch of mistakes, and I already knew how to fix them.
Yeah, in your area, the Southern Georgia area, there's a military base, right? So you get a lot of these relocation clients.
Yes. So we have Hunter Ari Airfield in Savannah, and we have Fort Stewart in the Hinesville area. Each are about 30 minutes apart from each other. I live in Richmond Hill, which is in the smack dab middle of both of them. So a lot of our clients are military-based clients, either they're active duty or retired military. So automatically, my experience started with that military client and grew from there. So I had to think of ways of getting people who are not here in our town to see and choose me as their realtor. And the first and most inexpensive way I could think of was social media. So really getting out there and trying to draw the clients. Between social media and YouTube was my 2, I would say, sharpest tools that I had to get eyes and ears on my service.
Juanita, what advice would you have for first-time buyers in today's market?
I would say interview. First-time home buyers I know they don't know necessarily what questions to ask, but I would say interview the person to make sure that they are driven for your needs as a buyer. Now, sometimes as buyers, we have to also stay open-minded because not having knowledge of a process or a transaction can leave you a little blinded. So also staying open-minded to that agent's suggestions and or education or value they're offering, but making sure that you choose an agent who is using you as your priority. Your needs are a priority, and if they cannot meet your needs, that they have a reason or a legitimate explanation to why we can't meet this particular goal that you have. Um, those are the two: interview your agents and just stay open minded to your possibilities of what you can or cannot get in this market. Um, I really feel that sometimes a lot of buyers may choose the first person to come along, and sometimes God gives them the first person, they're the best person, and then sometimes they just go through a transaction and it's not a happy experience or smooth experience, which makes people have a bad taste in their mouth about our industry, and it really shouldn't. It should be a happy experience. Whether it's your first house or your third house, it really should be um, an experience that you enjoyed.
What do you think are some like great starter questions people should ask when interviewing their agent?
Ooh. First, I would ask, my first thing I would ask is first, how many transactions have you serviced in the last 6 months? Maybe just getting the idea. Now, you don't have to look for the person who says 36, 100. Even if they say 6 or 5 or 3, um, that they have some type of consistency within, they're not doing one a year, or they're not an agent who doesn't have time or attention, because 100 transactions can be also a scary thing, because do they have the time and attention to devote to my transaction, as I would be concerned. Another question I think that is important, and I don't know how I would word this, but I would find um, personality traits. A lot of people are compatible, and then some are not compatible. Um, I find I do a lot of coaching of other agents, and I teach classes. So I find agents who, amongst other agents, they will say, "Oh, she asks us way too many questions." What's way too many questions for buying a house? Like, what is that? Like, I don't quite understand. If a person is asking questions or is inquisitive, uh, they clearly want to know. So what's too many questions? So I think that's a personality thing. You may not be the type of person who wants to share knowledge or give information, or is even prepared to answer real estate questions. Um, so personality traits that match your own, or values that match your values, I think would be important. Um, that I think that agent would respect what the buyer is asking for and what the buyer is looking for. And lastly, I say good 3 questions. A good question is always, how do you deal with problems? How do you deal with trouble? And I think I would even word it like this: if we tumbled upon a situation, a problem, is it totally my decision, or do you totally make the decision of what we're going to do, or do we do it together? Um, and that answer would tell a lot about a person. Um, uh, the answer I like to give is, I give you all the knowledge and the information, and I wait for your decision. End all be all. This is the client's house. This is the client's decisions, but they do need the facts so they can make a good decision. There are some agents that make decisions for their clients, or let their clients make decisions without the facts or information. And that scares me a little.
I think those are great questions to ask. And, touching on when you're talking about personality compatibility, I'm sure there's so many different types of personalities, but I'm sure there are people who are more curious about the process, and some people probably are less. Some people are like, I don't really care how it happens. I just want to buy this house. So can we just get from A to B? And then there's other people who are much more curious about this process. Not to say that this other person isn't curious about other things in life. They probably are, just not this, and I do think whichever person you are, you need to find that agent that's compatible for you in that regard. I like to think I'm maybe a little more curious. I want to know what I'm getting into when I'm spending, a huge sum of money, like anybody is with any house at any price point. It's all a lot of money.
Right.
And so you deserve to know where it's going and why.
Right. And just like dating, there's somebody for everybody.
Yeah, certainly.
There's somebody for everybody. So it's just really just asking those personality questions and keeping an open mind. I like to say if their answers match the last agent's, it's not genuine. Like just, being genuine and being open to who you are, and let the client just make the decisions. I actually like the inquisitive client, maybe because I'm a teacher, I don't know, but I like the inquisitive client mainly because it allows what's starting to be routine for me to assure that I'm keeping you up to date. So it's almost like a trigger for me to tell you, explain the whole process to you. Like brushing your teeth. You don't necessarily say, okay, first I turn on the water, then I put my toothbrush under it. You just do it. You just do it. So in real estate, we start to get like that where we just do it, and we don't necessarily explain to the client what all is happening behind the scenes. So inquisitive clients, I've even set up a system in my CRM, in my database where I keep everyone's names, where it's just on my task list. So at a certain point in the transactions, 3 days after we go into contract, I should be going over the inspection report with them. I should be asking if they have any questions. I should ask if they understood the inspection. So these things that I normally would, look at the inspection myself and say, okay, this needs to be repaired. No, I'm having a conversation with my client, and they may not know nothing about an inspection, but I'm involving them, and I'm making sure that if any questions do pop up, they have that opportunity to ask. And any concerns, anything that we might have missed, and someone who's not in the industry can always see with a fresher set of eyes. So that's what I like as well. So just to make sure that we stay on target with making sure the client is abreast of everything in the transaction, I tend to like that inquisitive client.
What advice would you have for sellers?
Oh, so my first thing with sellers is to understand that you are presenting a product. And just like any other product, there's tons of cars on the market. Well, if you walked on at the car dealership and the car was dirty, it was scratched up, it wasn't presented at its best interest, at its best way of showing it, well, you'll think they at least could have cleaned the car up a little bit, or they at least could have vacuumed it out, or they at least could have cleaned the windows. All of those small details are extremely important. I like to tell my sellers, it's photo shoot day or it's showtime, and we have to put the makeup, the hair, and all the bells and whistles and make this house as beautiful as we can make it. Open all the blinds, make sure all the, everything is clean and there's no dust and there's no clutter. So those are as you can see, I'm an analogy girl. I like to do metaphors and show people in their way of looking at things. Is it show ready? That's what I always say. You got it show ready, ready for the cameras, things of that sort, to bring your property to be shown in its best light. 2, same thing, interview your agent. You get what you pay for. So if it's cheap, it's probably not going to be of good value, very good value. Obviously, we don't want to go for the most expensive because we want to try to save money. So, ask options on pricing and understand that you get what you pay for. So, on the back end, a lot of clients don't realize the marketing dollars that go into a transaction and putting a house on the market. In a transaction that I have, not only do I do professional photography, I do professionally marketed social media, print marketing. One thing that we also do is anyone and everyone who clicks on our ad gets a telephone call. So every morning we are, as a team, calling these leads that have clicked on your house and trying to get them out to come see your house. So always keeping your house at this top-notch stage is another big thing that I would say to a seller. Almost like it's a showroom or a store is really, really important, because it could be at the drop of a hat that we got someone interested and invited them to come over. And on my team, we daily look for buyers that are interested in our listings. So we drive and we call and we go out and talk to people, and the minute we get someone, that time window can be short. So keeping your home ready, and even asking those questions when you're interviewing agents, like, what are you providing? What's your marketing plan? What are the steps that you take to be sure my home is sold at the price and terms that I want?
And I think it's so funny because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this recently. My husband and I have been looking at houses here in Michigan, and, it is just so strange to me how easily we can flip our brains from like the way we look at our home versus the way we look at maybe a family or friend's home to evaluating a home for us to buy. It's like a whole different like set of eyes.
Yes.
I can be so forgiving of my home where I'm living. Oh, there's the baseboard is chipped where I ran the vacuum into it too hard, or like, there's dishes in the sink. Like, I'll get to that later. And even like my friend's house, oh, there's a little dust bunny over there. Like, they're busy. I get it. But if I were to walk into a home that I'm looking to buy and see all of those things, I would be appalled, right? And we are so critical, and we're so easily critical. And I don't know, I would be curious, like some psychology behind that. It's just very interesting to me.
Yeah, you're right. I've said plenty of times, okay, it's a little lived in, I'll say that to my buyer as we walk through, so they can get an understanding. Because sometimes, and a little lived in is sometimes being nice in some of the homes, but it is amazing to me, even how some of the pictures you see online, it's like, oh my God, the bed's not made, like, oh, you took a picture of the bed not being made, when, we're all guilty of it, sometimes of, okay, it's 12 o'clock, I need to go back upstairs and make my bed, like I just hopped out and, started doing something else. But then there's some of us that, well, you knew you were selling your home, so these are the things. But it adds to a person's day. always taking out the trash, always making sure the dog's bowl is put up, always making sure, little things. Every dish that goes in the sink needs to wash it, put it away, the refrigerator, just not, spilling anything, make sure you wipe it up. Just every little detail can mean to a buyer. And a funny little story, I had a listing here around the corner from my house, and it was vacant, so we didn't have the lived in issue. But the neighbor next door sat in his garage with no shirt on, and couldn't really tell if they were shorts or underwear.
Huh.
And he sat there, and that was his daily task. That's what he did every day. And the house was immaculate, gorgeous, and all the feedback I kept getting was, not interested. The neighbor is sitting outside naked. What could we do about that? What? We really can't do anything about it. But there's something that affected the sale of the home. It's the feedback, and it can be things that are within your control, and it can be things that are out of your control. But our main point is just to control the things we can, so we don't have so many different things against us. Someone might come and say, "Oh, that's nothing. He's just out there, enjoying the weather, and they'll be fine with it as long as the house meets their needs." So there's many, many things, like you said, that people may see in a house that they're looking to buy that they don't see in their own home, and I try to keep an eye out and always try to look at different things that a buyer may look at, to just make that house more marketable and more sellable quickly. And then within the price, I wanted to add to that, one of the things that I think are important is how your listing agent, a seller's listing agent looks at price. Extremely important. Many of us know, and this goes back to what you were saying, is looking at it from a different view. Many of us know that when we're buying something, we want to buy for cheap. But often when people are selling, they want to sell for as high as they possibly can. And because one is a seller, one is a buyer, just, you can change from a seller to a buyer, right away. You have to understand. And one of the things I like to say is, okay, Mr. Buyer, when we're putting an offer on this house, we have to keep in mind that this seller is just like you and I. They have to take this money and go buy another home. They have to make sure that their family is taken care of. They have to make sure that they have money to move, money for their closing costs. And then I say the same thing on the seller's behalf. Okay, Mr. Seller, we have to understand that this buyer is just like you and I. They are looking for a house that they feel like they're going to win in, that they're not getting taken advantage of, that there are similar houses for about the same price or lower in their area. They want to feel like they got what they were looking for at the price that they can afford. And everybody wants to get a deal. So however we can structure this to make the buyer feel happy, but make sure that we're protected in the price that we want to get, the number we want to get as well. So keeping everybody in mind so it doesn't turn into a competition. Because if it starts at a competition with price, it will be a competition the entire transaction. Oh, he wants this. I don't want to give it to him. Well, why? I don't know. I just don't want to give it to him. Just because if I give it to him, he wins, I lose. That's how people view things. So just understanding that the agent that understands you and you understand them on terms of price is extremely important. I feel like it's on both ends, and I have to switch when I'm depending on the client I'm with, but I try to keep the same frame of mind.
Yeah, without being cliche, it's like a dance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is true. And no one needs to take, steal stage from each other, especially in a duet or any of that sort. So yes, it is. You're right. I like that.
Yeah. Juanita, can you think of a particularly memorable transaction or maybe one that was like challenging that you learned something from?
Ooh. Um, hmm. I've had quite a few, and I say this often. I say, I feel like God wants me to be a rock star because He's throwing all of the rocks at me, and I have to either duck or catch them. Okay, but I have one in particular. I had a family moving from Florida. Um, their lease was, it was up. Their landlord wanted to sell, and they have had mistakenly waited, hoping that that landlord would sell to them in Florida, um, and that didn't happen. They ended up selling to another buyer. I got them at their 60-day mark. They had to be out within 60 days. And the husband had recently acquired a job in this area. He was starting within the next 90 days. And they had a family to move here from Florida, and he had to start this job. Um, they were not pre-approved by a lender. So we had to start from scratch. And the challenge in that transaction was, number one, was timing. The second and the biggest challenge was they were looking to buy a home, have very little money saved, and had the challenge of that short timeline, 60 days. And they were far away. So it wasn't like we can go out every other day or every weekend. And, it was really a challenge of me going from house to house to house, videoing, FaceTiming with them. And when we finally found a house, it was my mistake of trusting the lender that they chose. And I say my mistake because I often like to talk with my lenders beforehand. Once we get that pre-approval, get to know them, and establish some type of work partnership. Um, I like to establish that me and my clients are important to them. Because I think I made the mistake because I was on a short timeline. I skipped that step. Because I just overlooked it. I think that's hindsight. That's what I think I did. I just was moving quickly, find the house. They're pre-approved, find the house. That's how I was trying to work. And what happened is this lender never did nothing to the file the entire time. We got a pre-approval that she literally just wrote up. Hindsight learned that she never even pulled their credit. And we had a house under contract with actually no money to pay for it. But I had a letter that said they were pre-approved, and I didn't ask the questions like I normally do, pre-qualifying questions, even to my lender, and I should have done that because I probably could have digged a little more and found, well, do you know their credit score? Do you know how much income they make? So in the end, we had 2 weeks to close. Credit hadn't even really been pulled. Income hadn't been verified. And instead, this lender decided, look, we can't close this file in 2 weeks. You have to ask for an extension. We did that. My clients had to stay in the hotel School was starting too. That was another weight. The kids had to go to school, and all that good stuff. And we got to that 2 weeks that we gave her that grace, and we got to the day before closing, and she issued a denial letter. Why was it denied? Insufficient time to work the file is what the denial letter said. And it was a disaster. I had clients in a hotel, literally had their belongings on a trailer, covered with a tarp, and they had a U-Haul truck that they were paying for daily, because they didn't want to return it because they didn't have anywhere to put it, so living in a hotel with 2 children and a dog. I came this close to asking my husband if they could come stay here. Like, I really felt bad. In that time period, we changed lenders, switched to someone that I knew, and they were able to get us closed in 18 days. So that story has a happy ending. But what I learned and why it was challenging, there were so many pressures because I care. It's not just a transaction. There was so many pressures in that transaction that it turned into almost like a nightmare. The wife cried during closing because it was so stressful. And I was, we all kind of, now we consider each other family now, because it's like going through tough times together. You kind of get joined, and always want to, have a relationship now because we've been through the storm. But I did learn that never skip a step. Um, don't take for granted that others are going to do their jobs, and always follow your systems that you have in place. Because in the beginning, I put them in place there to get to know more lenders and to assure that my clients are being taken care of. And I took that for granted in that challenge. And I call it a challenge because I felt like it was put before me and I missed it. We did close and we did have a happy ending, but it was hard. So it was hard to see a family go through that, and to think, oh my God, we're homeless. Oh my God, I left a crucial part out. They had already wired the money to close when we were supposed to close that day before. So they were out of funds too. The funds was already gone to the close. So it wasn't like, oh, we'll just go rent a house. Oh, we'll just go. Their money that they had was gone so and it's going to take a while to get it back. So it was that we were dealing with too. It wasn't like, where's this money coming from? That if we do rent, where's the first month's rent and the security and blah, blah, blah. So we tried other options, and the only option in the end was to fight through it and to get that transaction closed. And luckily the seller was very understanding with all of that extension after extension. So I want to say that that's the first one that came to mind. Definitely was the toughest.
It's truly a story of resilience, and I'm so glad that they were able to end up in that home. And I'm so glad that you were so well resourced that you had someone that could just, come in and clean it all up for you guys.
Right, yeah. And relationships in real estate are extremely important. Relationships with my lenders, relationships with the home inspectors, relationships with the insurance agents, repairmen, roofers, contractors. Because you find that you need a favor at the drop of a hat. And we had a storm here recently that came in and caught everybody by surprise, a hurricane. And we were in the middle of a transaction. The transaction was supposed to close that Friday. The storm happened Thursday night. and the lender said, hey, you can't close until you fix the storage room door. And I was able to make a phone call and get someone over there, and within a amount of 2 hours, it was fixed, and we were able to close. And so those relationships are extremely important and very important.
Yeah, totally. Especially when, right, as you were highlighting with your other story, like people are on timelines a lot of the time. I think you get very few people who are like super flexible and things like that. People are moving for work um, a lot of the time and various things like that, or they need to sell a home to buy a home or all of that kinds of stuff. And so you having all of these resources that can come in, and although an act of God like tried to get in your way, like couldn't stop you.
No, right. And I like that. I like that you said it like that. Yeah, even if through a storm, we can make it happen. Um, I really appreciate those, and I think I have those relationships because if I'm asked a favor, I don't expect anything back. I just, oh sure, I'll help. Or if someone needs assistance or needs someone to show up and volunteer, or yeah, sure. That's one thing I love about real estate. It gives us the flexibility and the freedom to help others and not need to ask for anything in return, even financially, and it gives me the freedom to be able to have the flexibility to even write a donation or a check, or so I can both give my service or funds financially, and people see you working in the community and they want to help you too. So I think real estate provides that benefit in my life. For sure it does.
That's beautiful. Juanita, you've talked earlier in our conversation about some mentorship. I'm curious what your advice to a new real estate agent would be.
My advice to new agents, I do this all the time. I teach pre-license classes. So often I find myself saying, this is not me recruiting, however. um, my advice to an agent is to determine what your goals in this business are, um, and interview brokers who match or have those same values or goals that are aligned with yours. And the reason why I would give that advice is because it becomes easy if you have a mission or a vision that you're shooting for, and you have a broker who has a similar mission or vision. It's easy just to add yourself and stir. You can add yourself into their brokerage and then implement their systems and tools because they already have a setup. um this is just like open a McDonald's. I want to have a restaurant, but I don't. McDonald's gives you all the twos. So burgers, fries, fish sandwich, chicken sandwich, boom. And you just follow these directions. And so interview your brokers. Understand that there are many, 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 many licensed agents, and by passing that state exam, you now can choose who is the appropriate broker that matches your business goals and needs. You can interview your brokers, not necessarily them interviewing you, but it does go both ways. However, making sure that you're on the same page in your brokerage, and their values and their systems and their tools match will make it a lot easier in starting this business.
I think that's great advice. I think probably like one of the biggest eye openers in my adult life was understanding that with any job, the interview does go both ways, right? We are doing a personality check on both sides, right? Because although, there are different times where the job market is very difficult, at the end of the day, right, you got to be happy, right, doing what you do. And especially
Yes.
so many people get into real estate because it's a real passion of theirs. I would hate for anyone to have anything that would dim their light, right? And so, yeah, you've got to interview to find those right people that are going to help you shine brighter. There, look, see, I threw in a
Yes.
metaphor too.
Yes. I definitely think that the one thing that I did when I first came in that I didn't realize, and I see a lot of new agents do, is this is a business. Start it like a business, operate it like a business, every step of the way. There should be a process. When I say systems, there should be like a workflow. This gets done, check. Now this gets done, check. And always follow that system, because that helps your business streamline into a productive, successful business. And starting off where you have one client doing it that way will definitely help when you have 26 clients. Will definitely make sure that you're providing value when you have 100 clients, when you have, because you kept that same strategy, system, workflow, whatever you want to call it, throughout the business lifespan. So definitely remembering that real estate is a business, definitely.
And Juanita, I know we are wrapping up the year 2024. We're in Q4. I'm curious, how your goals have been going and how you're approaching goal setting for the new year.
Well, goals didn't necessarily hit for my team. I did hit personally what I had set. I have went from having a 3 agent team to now there's 9 of us. And um, so I had 6 brand new agents on my team. It was a goal that we had together to have consistent closings. So 6 to 12 closings for the year for those that are part-time, and 12 for those that are full-time. And we didn't quite make it. I think it is an eye-opener for some agents that it's just not opening a door and showing a house. So I plan to set those same goals. Actually, we have a meeting on Friday about their personal goals so we can add it to the team's goals. But it's my plan so far, without talking to them yet, to set those same goals in place since we didn't hit them, and then set actions that we know will work, and get them into play. I'm a strong believer of you have to plan those actions, those things you have to do on a daily basis, and then you have to execute them. Nobody plans to fail, but some fail because they didn't have a plan. So it's extremely important to me and the way I teach and the way I lead to make sure that we have a plan of action. If we're working as a team, we have to talk about what do we plan to do? What are the activities? Because it could be as simple as that. A lot of new agents just don't know, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know who to call. How do I get their phone number? Like just simple, basic things. How do I know who wants to buy? So those actions, those activities, those answers to those questions, that's what I'm here for. And that's what I provide. So just making sure that's clear to my agents of what their activities are and how they plan to execute and get them executed.
That's
So
great.
that's our plan.
Well, I'm so excited for you. Juanita, it has been so wonderful talking to you today. Would you like to tell everyone how they can find you and how they can work with you?
Sure. I am Juanita Lowery. I am a realtor in the Southeast Georgia, Savannah area. You can reach me at FortStewartHunterHomes.com. That's our website. And my phone number is 912-332-4462. And I am also a real estate teacher, coach. So even if you're not looking to buy or sell, if you are looking to come into real estate as an agent, or be coached or tutored, that's me. That's what I do. So you're welcome to contact me and ask me any questions you do have about real estate, because this is my thing.
Awesome. And we will put all your links and your phone number in the show notes so people can find you super easy. Juanita, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast brought to you by Windowstill. I'm Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.